I'm Sarcastic and Fantastic, and I welcome you all to my video on The Force Awakens versus A New Hope, and if it was really worth the hype it received. I don't think that's a secret to anyone that The Force Awakens is eerily similar to A New Hope. There are a few parts of the movie that are different, but mainly just because of an old or new character adding a small subplot, or they slightly switch it up. I will offer a spoiler warning for this video, but honestly, if you've seen A New Hope, you've essentially seen The Force Awakens. My evidence for this? Over 89% of events occurring from the main plot or subplots are scenes that occur in other movies in the franchise. That means that only about 11% of this movie actually contains plot points that belong strictly to it. While the others, with the exception of the ending of Return to the Jedi, take completely different paths and only share scenes that every other Star Wars movie has, like lightsaber duels or someone's hand coming off or space battles. You know, just how every Old West film has a cowboy walking into a saloon only for everyone in the saloon to be silent, or the film ending in a riding off into the sunset scene. Trademarks of the genre, right? So if it's the same plot, then how does this new movie with updated technology and modernized film techniques still end up falling short of the original from 1997? Well, to start off first, let's take a quick look at some of those 89% similar scenes, and see what it did good and bad from a film perspective. First up, the opening shot. The news starts with Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer blocking out a planet at the beginning, showing the menacing power of the First Order, and symbolically showing you that it conquers worlds, compared to the original that is often hailed for setting up the plot perfectly without even a single word. A small rebellion cruiser flies by quickly away from the screen. It is then chased after by a large Imperial starship that utterly dwarfs the Tantive 4. At this point, we know whoever this ship belongs to is being chased, and whoever is chased is not a force to be reckoned with. But I would say the way A New Hope does it is way more effective. They both give the same general idea, but in Episode 4 more detail is given to you about the specific conflict, and the ships are 1-to-1 scale for the audience to accurately compare size. Whereas as an audience, we know that Kylo Ren's ship blocking out a planet is just a perspective shot, and doesn't actually dwarf the planet. Holding your hand in front of your face doesn't mean that it's bigger than anything behind it. It's just perspective, so the effect is a lot greater with the 1-to-1 scale that actually shows the scale of the ships compared to a planet like Tatooine. Not only that, but it shows the conflict between the Empire and the Rebellion, which invests you in the characters, and in my opinion is a way better introduction into the film. Next scene. Let's go to the famous or infamous Cantina Scene, depending on what version you're watching.
Yes, I bet you have.
Both scenes consist of the main characters entering a cantina, where they aim to further their journey by gaining assistance from another character, although in this scene things are a little bit different from the same premise. In Force Awakens, the motivation for the characters is mainly information about the Resistance and meeting an old friend, but for Finn it's trying to escape from the New Order, from the rest of the group, which actually adds quite a bit of conflict that wasn't seen before that I really liked. However, in A New Hope, it was two wanted men desperately trying to flee from their planet in order to gain assistance from the rebellion, with added conflict of Luke not completely ready to run away from his life. Both scenes serve their purposes pretty well. The cantina in A Force Awakens is dark and unfriendly, while the cantina in Mos Eisley seems more relaxing and homely, especially with the music. The conflicts with the Balchinian and Men in Black too.
Kang, he's a Balchinian!
Gee, Ponda, I just don't see how you can keep designing with no drawing arm. I'm sorry, but we have to let you go.
Solidifies a hostile environment, along with Greedo's death, which showcases Han's character. Keep in mind that the Force Awakens Cantina Scene happens way further into the film than in A New Hope, so not all characters were developed yet, and it's not fair to judge Force Awakens on that front, because it still tells us a lot about the characters. That Finn is a really good guy, but he's torn between what he knows is right and what he knows he has to do. Same with finding out Rey's backstory later on in the scene. Although it is a bit ham-fisted, it does answer some questions.
Where'd you get that?
A good question. For another time.
And gives out a few more, albeit really cool ones. Overall, I feel the feel of the original had a slightly better scene, giving us a very us against them undercover feel that really attaches you to the characters. Whereas in Episode 7, the characters feel a bit more safe, as the First Order isn't in control of the land like the Stormtrooper caked alleys of Tatooine. But I will say, the fight after the Force Awakens Cantina was way cooler. Now here's one of two spoilers I will give, so click or skip here. The death scenes from the mentors Obi-Wan and Han Solo. In A New Hope, Obi-Wan was in the middle of a pretty rudimentary duel with Darth Vader. He knows that Luke and the gang have to get out of there, and him getting back to his friends who escaped would just risk their lives. So he self-sacrifices himself to let the others go and to become a ghost-like mentor for Luke in the future. On the other hand, in The Force Awakens, Han has a promise from Princess Leia that if he sees his son Ben, that they have to at least try to win him over from evil. The rest of the group is about to get out of there and blow up the Death Star Mark III, but with his promise out of love, Han walks onto the thin catwalk over to his son. At a moment where Ben is in conflict to give his dad his lightsaber so he can come back to him, he decides to... Yeah, okay, let's get to analyzing these two. Obi-Wan's sacrifice is a very understandable scene with realistic motives. He cares about his friends and knows that to continue the Jedi he must let Luke go and see the true evil of the dark side. The thing is, in this scene, it's not just Ben himself that we're so saddened to let go. Even though he is performed fantastically by Sir Alec Guinness, it's the actions attached to the character and what it means for the story, and the characters like Luke that have to watch. Unlike in The Force Awakens, the reason this is such a tragic scene is due to the character of Han. Throughout all of the characters in the trilogy, he's probably the most likable. He has so many goods and bad sides, unlike Luke and Leia, who are mainly good. It's even shown in the coloring of their clothes. Luke and Leia are pure white to show pure light, and Han is black and white to show that he is both good and bad, which makes him the most realistic character with the most understandable motives, adding to the fact that he is the most well-developed character in the entire film. He has 3 movies of character development in the original trilogy member with the most screen time, and he dies for love, something Han Solo from A New Hope would never do, which shows how his character has changed, and now understands. His character is complete. It's quite beautiful, actually, which is why, as much as the Obi-Wan death served, I feel the superior and more powerful scene goes to Mr. Solo.
What's that, Solo? Oh, blasters aren't fair? Okay, dig it. No blasters. Oh, didn't see that one coming, did you? Huh? So slow.
I think the last clip that we should discuss here is a trench dogfight from the original, Episode 4 versus Episode 7. The scene from A New Hope was an extremely tense scene that really kept you on the edge of your seat, where it seems like a very hopeless gamble. Due only to the guidance of Ben Kenobi and Han Solo, is Luke able to get out of the trench alive and destroy the Death Star from near destruction of the Rebel base. On the other hand, the trench fight from The Force Awakens is mainly a very open space. This takes so much of the tension away from the scene, and each of the characters is in our eyes disposable. We only really care about Poe getting out of there alive. We never even knew any of the other characters. Differing from that is the extremely cramped scene that Luke cannot outmaneuver Vader or his goons in. Right behind him, we can hear the auto-lock system getting closer and closer as the beeping gets louder and louder and more constant. Luke had to do this, otherwise his and all of his friends were toast. We can see the Death Star timer too. Its target on Luke's friends is almost done, just as Luke is about to be taken out like the rest. A completely unexpected saver emerges from behind. At this point to us, Han was nothing but a
half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
You can't use that word! Only we can use that word!
and was the last person we expected to save Luke from Vader's grip, which made the ending to the film very satisfying. I would say that from a set standpoint and overall scene-to-scene composition, A New Hope edges out Episode 7. But again, that isn't a bad thing. Many of these scenes serve their purpose as well. If you were rebooting the film, there would only be a few things here and there that could actually be improved. However, something that is less forgiving in my eyes is Rey's character. The fact of the matter is, Rey fits into a weak character archetype known as a Mary Sue. Bandit Incorporated has described and demonstrates this way better than I ever could.
The term Mary Sue appeared first off in a Star Trek fan fiction story called A Trekkie's Tale, introducing a 15-year-old female member to the crew of the Enterprise named Mary Sue, who quickly outperforms all the other members of the crew. She outs Spock, proving that her logic is better than his. She's the one woman who's immune to Kirk's charms. You get the idea. She was unrealistically gifted and in the end single-handedly saves the Enterprise before dying a hero. The character was actually created as a parody of other fanfiction writing and stories. As with a lot of fanfiction, the writer usually creates like an idealized version of themselves and then inserts them into the universe. So basically, to be a Mary Sue, or a Gary Stu, that's the male version, you need to be perfect and flawless, you need to outperform all the established characters with little to no explanation, and you have unrealistic abilities that are not supported by solid backstory. I want to stress that the negative connotations that come with the term Mary Sue is not just because a character's good at stuff, because of course they're good at stuff. That's why they're in a movie, is because they're good at stuff. The negative connotations instead come from the character being badly written, that the backstory doesn't explain why they're so good. They're just good because they just are.
Bandit makes some fantastic points in his video on Rey, and I would definitely recommend you visiting his channel to get the full idea. And as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty definitive that Rey is a Mary Sue. I mean, is she a high honors engineer? Apparently, so she can fix and manipulate anything she gets her hands on that is remotely electronic. She can fix other people's ships who have worked on it almost their entire careers. Knowing what random components will do that she has no knowledge of, like the gas pipes. She can fly a ship that a leader like Lando Calrissian couldn't even use in the expanded universe, so he gambled it off to Han. Flying professionally enough to perfectly shoot down a TIE fighter with a stationary cannon. How? Oh, but that's not even the end of it. She completely mops the floor with Kylo Ren at the end, who has had intense training on the dark side that would probably rival Darth Vader. But she still overpowers his force, and beats him with a lightsaber that Finn, a grown man who had used it earlier in the film, couldn't even master, even though his lightsaber scene was a lot more emotional, or as Bandit put it hilariously, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. And the big thing is, her character poses a huge problem to the film. She's a completely uninvestable character. She already completely beat the main villain in their first film, with only knowing a little bit about her powers from midway into the film. So what's gonna happen next in the film, huh? She's gonna get into a lightsaber duel like Luke did? I'm not gonna care. She already kicked his well-trained ass once, so once she gets training, she's gonna be a god amongst men, where the battles won't have any emotional meaning because she and everyone and their mothers know that she is gonna win. Which wasn't the case with Luke. If Luke went up against Vader in A New Hope, he would have gotten his head chopped off in an instant. And Vader isn't as fast or as young as Kylo. Even in the next movie, after being personally trained by the best two Jedis in the galaxy, one of them being dead, Luke still loses and is only given mercy and survives because he is Vader's son. Only in the last film does he actually defeat Vader, and even then, it takes him and Vader to overthrow the Emperor together. It took Luke 6 years for what only took Rey about 2 hours. Like, Rey, why are you even going to Luke in the first place? Who cares about him anymore? He's chump change. You are now the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy. To me, Rey was something that made the film a lot harder to watch the third time around with the Mary Sue concept in mind. That is one of the main problems. The scene-to-scene composition to me was understandable, but some other things I didn't like was that the Rebel theme in the originals sounded heroic, awesome, and fast-paced.
Good luck.
Okay, everybody to your stations, let's go! Right.
Compared to The Force Awakens, which sounds more like a theme for the Wehrmacht in a World War II film. But that's understandable, considering that John Williams is a little bit past his prime. Another quick one was the end, just seems like a weird staring contest between the two characters, Luke and Rey. Comrade, I'm not going to blink. Da, to beat fascist pigs, we must keep our eyes wide open. Da, I agree. I'm going to make frowny face now. I would have liked something more climactic, like Luke summoning the lightsaber from Rey's hand, and Luke turning on the lightsaber that he has missed for such a long time. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit after it came out. It was so nice to have everyone else loving Star Wars again too. Me and my friend Adam were especially excited, and then proceeded to go back home and play Star Wars Battlefront 2 all night. So it might seem that I don't like the movie. Do I have gripes with it? Yeah. Do I think it was a little bit too overhyped for what we got? Yeah, absolutely. I am prepared to eat my words if Episode 8 comes out with a surprising twist that answers everything. Like Kylo and Rey switching sides to make her the near unstoppable enemy. but from someone who wants to go into film as a career, I can't help but notice the film's flaws like that. Well, that's enough for me today. I'll enjoy having a discussion in the comments. As for now, I'm Sarcastic and Fantastic, and I'll see you next time.